Okay, so we got to use our ShopMaster table saw here. It's a Delta. It was the lower end table saw that they had at Lowe's. I'm no stranger to Delta products. This is my, probably a 20-year-old Delta chop saw, miter saw, whatever. Basic, very, very basic. There's no laser, there's no guides, there's no or sliding motion. It's just an articulating miter saw. It's worked great. But we're talking about the ShopMaster Delta table saw. It was at Lowe's for like 159 bucks. We used the blade that came with it to rip laminate flooring, and did good. I'm surprised, actually. I thought it was going to be a little bit more difficult. You can see down here by the amount of sawdust after my first cleaning, my first pass with the broom and everything. It definitely tears through it. There is one little thing I don't really like about this, and that is obviously it's just a cheap rail here, but it's got this locking mechanism and it always wants to kind of bounce, and you always have to double check. And I mean, I would anyway, but you have to double check the distance between your rail and the blade just to make sure that they are in fact parallel. You can't really go based on this at all. There are a couple of other little things. For instance, if you are ripping a piece of wood and you get to this point here, and there's nothing I can do about this, but there's a little lip right here that I always have to pick up the wood just a hair to get it over this. And that's, one, it's a distraction, and two, it doesn't give me a perfectly clean push, because once the end piece hits there, I've got to pick it up slightly, go forward, and get it back onto the table itself. One, that could be dangerous based on where the wood is at, so you could experience some kickback because this is the edge of the blade, edge of the workpiece, and you've only got a couple of teeth that would actually catch if it did kick back. But other than that, it's been pretty good. It's been cutting pretty straight. I thought the blade for sure and the bearings and they were going to be cheap enough that it wasn't going to last very long without readjustment, but it worked pretty good. And actually my previous table saw was a Delta as well, and I did have bearing problems. Now this particular one is obviously a newer model, and I do like this for several reasons. It's got built-in storage in it. So there are my tools. There's my crosscut guide, whatever you want to call it, and here's my push stick, and it actually mounts to the table saw as well. Bam, it's all there. That way I never lose any of my pieces. It's all right here at the table saw, which I like. Did not have any problems with the stand. I thought it was going to be wobbly or shift on me based on the way that the pads are on the feet for the legs here, but there has been no issues. So overall, for me, somebody who doesn't use a table saw commercially or for any really large projects, you know, I'm not cutting 4x8 sheets of plywood yet, but you know, for the investment to get the floors done, get everything ripped that I needed, it was great. I wouldn't mind spending $159 again on this particular one if I had small jobs. If I had larger jobs, if I was building cabinets or something like that, or maybe even something that used a little bit heavier wood that requires a little bit more push, I might invest in something a little bit bigger, maybe the next step up, which was about $300. A completely different brand, but it was definitely a heavier duty table. Or I would make sure that the table is up against something to where there would be no sliding, because as you can see, it does put off a lot of sawdust in the back end. There is no way to adapt, at least not that I found, a vacuum system to this particular model. So you see all the fine dust down here, which will make the floor slippery. And obviously you want to keep your workspace safe, so you do want to keep that clean throughout your project. But and of course I had the kids helping me. They brought in bubbles and a wheelbarrow. But anyway, for 159 bucks, I would recommend it, especially if you are a minimal user like I am. So it worked for what we needed, and I think it's a keeper. So check it out. This is the Delta ShopMaster. Bought it at Lowe's. 159 bucks.